I just recorded for 45 minutes and I was muted again. This is actually ridiculous nowadays. Oh god. Guys, okay, you wanted another part of this. Here is another part. But hey, I'm gonna same thing. If this video can get at least 100 likes, you know what? I actually increase it for this video because I'm so mad that I record 45 minutes for nothing. If this video can at least get 150 likes, I will continue this series and I will make this a lot more concise from a CC perspective, CC cleave playstyle perspective, because this is where my specialty is in about and everything, right? And how you want to draft in that. If you want to see a different type of playstyle and how to draft as a bruiser player, I can suggest you check out Sturby, because Sturby is also very knowledgeable on his YouTube channel, and he does also a lot of RTA related stuff. Go check him out because he shows you how to draft as a bruiser player. Okay, now with that out of the way, we discussed what you want to do with the first two picks, with your protected and your 4 and 5. Now, what are the common pre-bans in the current RTA scene? We have the Tiamat is a pre-ban which is currently often picked. Raymerry is now a new addition. We have MaTeIRiA, probably one of the most banned unit in the entire game. Now Aya is in there as well. Doki is in there as well. I don't think there's anything else right now in the current meta game which is banned more often than those units right now. And as I told you, these bans, except for like 2, tell you already more than enough what they are about to play. I think right now nowadays in this game, even a Raymerry pre-ban, which is now the new unit in this game, does not necessarily tell you what playstyle they're playing. It could even be a bruiser player who just does not like playing against a Raymerry. So she is a pre-ban that does not give you any sort of information. But now that we have a lot of new addition to this game, you have to also decide and figure out, okay, well, how do you want to draft in certain scenarios? What do you want to, and how do you want to deal in certain scenarios with what type of player? Now, since we're a CC player, we need to think about how we want to draft. Okay, now if you are getting first pick and you want to play Plume, you have to pre-ban Aya. It's a must, because Aya on Reaper just plays super strong into Plume here, and then just go with Aya into the third protected slot, and then they let your Plume go through. They're not going, if they draft her into the protected, they are not going to ban Plume. Okay, they let Plume go through because they actually want your Plume to move so they can cut and then rip you over. Okay, so if you want to get first pick with Plume, this is now Aya is the one they banned. And as I said, MaTeIRiA is still 95% of the time the unit is still mostly pre-banned. Okay, but this is how you want to pick, and they now decide to pick. I just want to go with a standard scenario because I do want to show that one first. And as I said, I just speed it up. So they pick, for example, they're going to pick Tiamat, and they're going to pick, for example, where's the Fushu? If I can find her right now, I can't find her. Why can I not find her? There she is. So they pick these two units. So you know, okay, okay, this player is like a more of a player that plays into the bruiser play style. Now what you want to do here is, I told you last time, is you going with your 2 CC units, and then you have something you want to protect, and then maybe like your 2 strippers or something, or your 2 strippers into something, and then your 2 CC units. That's not what you want to do. Okay, you always want to keep your slots open. Do never draft like just your 2 CC strippers immediately, or your 2 CC units immediately, because it removes the flexibility of your draft. Now what you want to do is, here in the second one, you want to pick up the Mio, or you want to pick up one of your other CC units, because that helps you out. So you have now a stripper and you have a CC, and now you can decide what you'll want to lock into the third one, right? Now there are many different scenarios. You can either go with, if you want to play CC Clay, you pick up Gatsby, or you pick up Yali, right? If you want to go for a DPS route. Okay, you can also pick up, because you got the first pick and they picked up these 2 units first, you can pick up Raymerry. Raymerry actually plays very, very strong into CC. She's a very strong CC cleave unit. Yes, 100% very strong unit. But getting her is probably more unrealistic, because she's probably taken at this point in time. Either she's banned, or because she's also now probably more of a common pre-ban. Either she's banned, pre-banned, or probably picked at this point in time. But if you can get her in that, if you have that type of situation, pick her up. Why not? But let's just say for a moment, hot moment, you cannot get her, then you can pick up Gatsby, or you can pick up Yelly or something like that, if you have a build. Okay, now if you have a build Gatsby, go pick him up, right? And then your opponent drafts, for example, Veronica, and they going, for example, Linglo. Could be the case. They're drafting like this. So now that you have one stripper, you need also another CC unit. Now what you want to do is you're going to pick up your Heinrich, because you need the second CC, and since they drafted Veronica, you also need to deal with wound and stuff like that, right? And now you need, what else do you need? A CC unit. So now you can pick Obol, or you can pick Nahor, depending what you want. Personally, I prefer Nahor more, or even better, this is situation now, is Mari. Mari, very strong, dark unit, does not suffer from minus 50% accuracy because of elemental disadvantage and stuff like that. So she's good, especially if you combo her with Gatsby now, and they now decide to, okay, now what do I want to do with my last pick? They either go with, for example, they could go with the Zanya last pick. That could be the case, but you know what? They could also be very annoying and say like, you know what? Let me go with Doki last. So what do you ban here in this type of scenario? Depends, like it really depends on what their shells are on, right? It really depends on the shells. Ban, in my opinion, whatever is on Reaper. Alright, the other thing doesn't really matter too much necessarily, or Alicorn. Two things that can be very annoying, but you have to look at turn meter and turn order. But I would say to kick things off, especially if you draft like this, the first thing you want to do is get rid of something that has Reaper steps. So just ban, for example, the Doki, just because in this type of scenario you have to look at, okay, a lot of speed. I mean, you could, theoretically speaking, ban Tiamat, okay, to get rid of the damage share, which is also a feasibility. If you're lucky enough, this plays out well, but it's also very dangerous, because most of the time, let's say they have Reaper, you ban whatever's on Reaper, for example, and they are banning in this type of scenario because they drafted the Veronica, they're going to ban the Heinrich. It doesn't make sense to draft Veronica if they ban not ban Heinrich if they drafted Veronica in this type of scenario, for example, right? So this is going to be banned, and then you have to encounter this. Now, what happens here is, depending on how your turn order is, what you don't want to have happen is anything on Bulwark right now in this game, okay? If you draft like this, make sure that none of your CC units are actually on Bulwark. If you have to fight and counter a Veronica, because your plume is going first, will strip off, kick her to the front, and now if you have something on Bulwark, she will just steal the Bulwark, and they cannot get CC'd. They cannot max get the Soul Ward. That is fine, you can deal with the Soul Ward, but you cannot deal with his immunity in this game right now, okay? So keep that in mind on how you want to deal with that, and then you follow up, and then you have to pay attention to what they have, right, in terms of shells, because this is what you need to pay attention to. If, for example, they have both these units on Reaper, I think at this point, if for example these two units are on Reaper, then you have to take the challenge and get rid of the Tiamat. I think then you actually have to take the challenge at this point in time, because what else are you supposed to do, right? What else are you supposed to do? You have to get rid of the DPS unit. So if both would be Reaper, get rid of the DPS, because if you get rid of one or the other, it becomes very, very annoying, right? The only other thing you can hope for is get rid of the faster unit, which is most likely going to be this unit right here, right there, and just pray and hope that you not trigger the Reaper steps, and instead of the S3 you go with the S1 instead, okay? So you go with S1 just to make sure, or just to hope to not trigger Reaper, okay? So keep that in mind. But in this situation, as we just said, let's say this is not on Reaper now because we banned based on that, and now you can go off your combo, and depending on how it goes, you can actually control them, get them low to like 1 HP because how strong Gatsby is, and then once they get onto the Soul Ward, there is where you can win these type of games. Now with Raymerry into the mix of the game, we have to also keep that in mind as well. So let's say you are getting the first pick Raymerry. Raymerry is really, really strong. Now they're going to pick up the Plume, and they also might be able to pick up Tiamat, or they might pick up, you know what, actually, where is she? Most likely like Tiamat, for example, it could happen. You could have picked up Fushu, but most likely it has to be Tiamat or something, or even Holden. Could be the case. They could also pick up Rahu. There's also a valid option. Rahu could also be picked up here. And now that you have a DPS unit, this is, you know, your DPS unit, right? What do you want to draft here? So you pre-ban the Aya, okay? You pre-ban the Aya, you have one DPS unit. How does that change your draft? Now you're going for your CC option, which could be either a Mari, it could be Obol, right? But just for consistency, let's say you pick up Mio. What you want to pick up for your third slot at this point in time is the Heinrich. Why is Heinrich now with the current meta game such a strong third protected slot? since there are so many ways to counter or play against CC, and it's very hard to play the play style, you have to draft against it. Okay, you have to draft against it. How do you draft against it? You have to get rid of, you have to pre-ban Aya, and you have to put Heinrich into the protected slot so your opponent doesn't draft Veronica. Because if they draft Veronica here, you'll take it. Because they cannot pre-ban Heinrich, and Veronica is incredibly weak against Heinrich. So this is just basically a free for you at this point. This is just -1 the opponent. So they're most likely not gonna... So you just put the Veronica away if they have them. And then they decide to go, for example, with something else in this type of scenario. Because it could be the case that they now say, you know what, let me pick up Viper here, for example, and then let me pick up, I don't know, let me pick up Linglao, and then their last pick is going to be like a Zanya or something. No, actually, you know what, or even a Fushu, depending on what they want to do. It could also be the case that they're not going with that, but you know what, instead they are going with Lilium into the protected, because you're playing into the CC route. And for the last pick, they just draft whatever they feel like, right, at the end of the day. So they going with like a Zanya pick right here, right there. So they have a draft like this to deal with your pick. And then how do you obviously respond to these type of things? So you have your stripper, you have a CC, and you have a DPS unit, right? Now, the way you want to pick at this point in time is you definitely need a second CC unit. So you pick up your second CC unit, and now the last slot is really, it comes down to you. You can either pick your second DPS because you have Raymerry, right? Since you have Raymerry, you cannot pick a second DPS unit. So if they ban Raymerry, you have a DPS, or the other way, could, right? Or if they ban one of your CC units, well, now you have 2 DPS. Do you really need it? Not necessarily, but it could actually work out for you, nonetheless. But yeah, this could be a very strong, or if you want to be a little bit safer here, if you feel a little bit too risky here, you can also go with the Freya, because the Freya just helps you with the pushback and stuff like that. And then you have to think about, okay, what do I want to ban? So the ban options here would be either between Linglao and Plume, depending on the situation, because you can't get rid of the, what's the face? The Lilium here right now. And they are most likely either to get rid of, for example, they're not going to ban then Freya because it doesn't make sense in that draft, but like they're going to ban either, for example, the Mio, or they just want to get rid of the Raymerry right off the gate. But like Raymerry as a CC player is such an incredibly strong first pick, because it puts extreme amount of pressure against other turn 1 players and against turn 2 players. Do they really want to let her through? Because you do have a lot of stuff to trigger her and deal with that. So if you can add like defense break and stuff like that, very, very, very annoying to deal with that type of scenario. Why is this? And I think they need to do something. That they really need to change the metagame right now, because the first pick is incredibly busted and broken right now. Because I give you another scenario. So you decide to pre-ban the Aya because you don't like the Aya, right? And they say, you know what, you got turn 1 and I don't want to give you, I don't know, Plume. Could be the case that they're deciding to pre-ban the Plume here. Maybe they ban something else, right? They could also ban, you know what, let me pre-ban Tiamat or pre-ban Doki. Could also be the case, right? It's whatever. Something that indicates you that it's most likely a turn 1 player. That is basically the point what I'm trying to say here. They're trying to indicate, okay, I'm a turn 1 player, or you just get the feeling they're a turn 1 player. Let me pick Raymerry first. Doesn't say anything. Even with an Aya pre-ban, does not even say anything necessarily. So you pick the Raymerry. So they think about, okay, what do I want to pick here? They pick up the Plume. They pick up Mio. They could also pick up Lily. Whatever might be the case at this point in time. Now, how do you respond to that? You have 2 options. Either you're going with your fastest unit in slot 2 and you ban protect Freya. You see where this is going, right? Or you put Freya into the 2 and ban protect your fastest unit. Now, obviously, if your fastest unit got picked by your opponent, you can't, okay? Then you're most likely going, then you have to settle with a slower unit, but you ban protect the Freya. If your fastest unit's still available, you can go Freya 2, fastest unit 3. and now you're speed battling here. No matter what the case is, if you do Freya 2, fastest unit 3, or the other way around, it is most likely GG for your opponent, because your opponent feels like, oh, what do I do now? Very bad situation. Now they will pivot to something different. Now what they can do in this type of scenario is Hoyen into the protected slot, and let me add MaTeIRiA to the mix. Could be the case. What happens? Could also be they saying, no, you know what, I'm not gonna pick MaTeIRiA right here. But usually you want to do it because you have the Hoyen, because if they pick then, for example, MaTeIRiA, or if you pick MaTeIRiA against Hoyen, they can't do anything. So most likely you pick the MaTeIRiA to protect the Hoyen here, and you're going with, okay, let me actually pick up Heinrich, and let me pick up something else, right? You could go here with that type of draft. You could go with Kokadi. You could also go with a second CC unit. Most likely the strongest one would be Neho. Neho would be really strong into this. You could also pick up Mia, for example, which would also be strong. But this is where it comes down to like gear requirement and stuff like that. If you say you don't have her, then you want to pick up the Neo, because Neo has the S2 with the strip and the CC. And now for the last pick, they're picking up this unit here, Bayo on Ember. Now this is actually very hard for both sides. What do you want to pre-ban in this type of scenario? There can be a lot of annoying things. So if you ban Lily and you don't get your things off, then they can just at some point in time, if you don't get the stuff off, maybe the Bayo might cut in somewhere and then boost something. If you ban the Bayo and don't do your stuff very well, they can maybe boost the MaTeIRiA up and kill you. The easier, and then if you, as I said, if you ban Plume, it's still the same thing. The Bayo would be here. But you know what? You have to take one gamble. But now that you have the Freya onto the protected slot, the safest ban would be the Plume, just to remove the speed boosting, like turn meter boost, right, from the Plume in this type of scenario. And they have to think, okay, they're kind of fucked in the situation, not gonna lie. I think no matter what they want to do here in this draft, it's basically GG for them. They can get rid of the Raymerry, but this is already enough firepower to deal with something like that, because you have double wound, you have the CC, you have the control. You can easily kill like this. This easily wins against like this. If you say, okay, let me actually let her through, what else do I want to ban? Then most likely either the Heinrich would be a ban, and you really pray that Nahor misses his Bulwark CC strip on his S2, and I think this would be the biggest play for your opponent. He could ban Mio and hope that you might, after Freya S2, you're not fast enough to cut. So there are only two logical things: either Mio and hoping they can cut, or Heinrich and pray that, for example, with Nahor, could be also whatever else at this point in time, but to fail the strip on the Hoyen, and the Hoyen can just steamroll at some point. But even then, it's really hard because of the Raymerry, right? But yeah, you win legitimately just by drafting, and just showing you how ridiculously OP turn 1 is, because you don't have to commit to anything. You draft the Raymerry first, they have to pick something, and if it looks like they're trying to go turn 1, just let me follow up with Freya and like CC. The only way they can actually have a chance is if they say, you know what, let me not draft necessarily Plume, I'm gonna go with Lily Freya first. So you do not get, or Mio Freya or something, whatever they have or what they're using, right? But basically just picking Freya right off the get-go, so they actually have a chance of speed contesting. Okay, so those are the things you have to consider, and on how you want to counter certain play styles. And this is where it becomes really iffy, because here, if they decide to now pick up, for example, the Lily Freya combo, how do you respond? The easiest way for you to respond in this type of scenario is you could now go, for example, MaTeIRiA, because you think, okay, they're going fast. Now you have the Freya Messiah combo. Why not? And now whatever is your fastest unit, if you have Mio is your fastest unit, protect slot free. You need to get the strategy. If they pick Freya here, the strategy has to be for you, put your fastest, legitimately your fastest unit into protected, and then you have to ban the Freya here. And then the rest here does not really matter too much, because that becomes then a speed battle. But yeah, this is to sum up the RTA basic session, episode 3. I made it a lot shorter now than the last one, just because of reasons. So guys, as I just said earlier, if we can get this to 150 likes at least, I will continue with the series. And as always guys, if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. I really appreciate it, and see you with the next one. Deuces.